Of course, we recognize the challenges. We are under an IMF program. We have already signed an MOU with the IMF that we will keep to certain program targets, which also includes our revenue to GDP ratio. Under the IMF supported program, we are hoping that we will scale up our revenue to GDP ratio to about 18.7% by 2026. 2024, we have a target that we have to meet, and on oil tax revenue at 15%. Right? So there are constraints within which we are working, but precisely that is the point that we have been making over the years, that the cost of correcting economic disruptions could be very high. It could be very high in terms of the price that the citizens, the households, and private sector have to pay in order to restore macroeconomic stability, and how long it will also take. That is exactly what you are doing. But there are some quick things that we can look at.
Budgeted 200 million cedis to support communities affected by the Kosovo spillage and floods in the Oti, Sana, and Bono East regions. Now, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta disclosed this during the presentation of the government's budget.
Mr. Speaker, government has budgeted an amount of 220 million to support the relief phase for communities affected by the Kosovo, as well as floods upstream in the Oti, Savannah, and Bono East regions. We have requested funding from the World Bank under the IDA crisis response window to support the resettlement of the victims, restoration of livelihoods, compensation, and reconstruction of infrastructure in the affected communities.
Parliament is urging citizens to brace themselves times as government's economic policy does not present any solutions to the current economic challenges.
The minister thought that they want to introduce one. He's going to tax. It's a luxury vehicle tax with a new name. To create the impression that they are using it, they are collecting it from vehicles that are producing higher emission. Aside that, they are also introducing other tax handles, like the tax stamp. If you buy a land and you want to register, you have to go and pay tax stamp, stamp duty. They are increasing it. He failed to give us the rate. The devil is in the detail, but he can't run. The things will come to Parliament. Or the number of taxes he has introduced worth 11 billion Ghana cedis. But let me tell you something. The NDC minority will certainly not support
these tax
measures that intend to destroy livelihoods and businesses.
Now, the New Patriotic Party, the NPP, has concluded vetting of parliamentary aspirants in orphan constituencies in the Greater Accra region. Greater Accra Regional Chairman of the NPP, Divine Otu Agohum, warned aspirants against any conduct that could bring the party's image into disrepute.
The exercise, which lasted for 2 days in the Greater Accra region, saw 56 aspirants from 17 constituencies vetted by the party.
This whole thing is eligibility test to find out whether they are members of the party, whether their membership is in good standing, whether they have issues of dual citizenship, whether they understand what is expected of them.
Some of the aspirants who spoke with the news team were excited about the process and confident of victory.
I know we are going to win. Since the homeboy is going to win, we must ensure that there's peace before, during, and after these primaries. On the 9th of 7th December 2024, 3 things will be trending. Number 1, Ningo Pram Pram. Number 2 will be elections 2024. Number 3 will be the name John Manchakwete.
I'm going to do more in the constituency to help first of my kind for a woman candidate winning the seat in Nungo Pram Pram.
With what we've told the delegates and the vision we have, is something that's going to move the constituency forward.
If we are able to choose a candidate who is much more appealing, both to the opposition NDC and within our own political party, we will be able to hold the seat and hold this for quite a while.
According to the Greater Accra Regional Chairman of the New Patriotic Party, Divine Otu Agohum, the party would not hesitate to disqualify aspirants if there need be.
A decision has been taken, but if through the vetting exercise we find acts of fraud or fraudulent conduct against you, or we have reasons to believe that you owe allegiance to any other country, we will disqualify you. But the final decision will be taken by the party at NEC. So we were, as it were, advising them to be cautious in their understanding of the process. This is just part of it. Having gone through this does not mean that you have become an automatic parliamentary candidate of the party. The party still reserves the right to disqualify you if later we find out that answers that you provided at this exercise, or we have some other evidence that suggests that you are not qualified.
On to some more stories, and the Ministry of Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs says a national religious policy is in the offing to regulate the religious activities of religious groups in Ghana. Now, according to the Sector Minister Stephen Asamoah Boateng, this will ensure the protection of the basic human rights of religious followers.
The 1992 Constitution prohibits religious discrimination and provides for individuals' freedom to profess and practice any religion as contained in Article 21, Clause 1C. All religious bodies are, however, required to register with the Office of the Registrar General to receive formal government recognition. Religious differences, if not well managed, can serve as a source of conflict, hence the development of the National Religious Policy. According to the Minister of Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs, Stephen Asamoah Boateng, the National Religious Policy will help reduce faith-based arbitrariness.
Whilst my ministry appreciates and commends the wonderful works of some of our religious bodies and leaders, we always also wish to take proactive measures to engineer the necessary reforms needed for addressing the worrying issues that have sprung up. Some religious leaders abuse their followers. Again, noise pollution, money laundering, which are in almost all the countries in the world become a crime. Exploitation of the vulnerable within the religious landscape, limited documentation on code of conduct, and succession plans that may bring confusion and conflicts in our religious bodies. False indoctrination. Also, we have inter- and intra-faith disputes.
The plan is also to address the challenges and opportunities that arise from the coexistence of different faiths and beliefs.
We also urge you to engage in constructive dialogue and mutual understanding while respecting the diversity of opinions and beliefs that exists amongst us.
The document is currently in its formative stages, with consultation to begin in the various regions. According to the 2021 Population and Housing Census, approximately 71% of Ghana's population are Christians, 20% are Muslims, and 3% adhere to indigenous or animistic religious beliefs. 6% of the population, according to the census, adheres to other religious beliefs or has no religious belief.
Now, away from that, President Akufo-Addo says the call by Africans and Africans in the diaspora for the payment of reparations by European nations that carried out the transatlantic slave trade some 400 years ago is not a plea for arms, but a demand for justice. President Akufo-Addo was speaking at the maiden edition of the Africa or Accra Reparations Conference 2023.
President Akufo-Addo said reparations are long overdue, noting that victims of other injustices in human history have rightly received reparations and that Africans deserve the same for the damage caused by the transatlantic slave trade.
Reparations for Africa and the African diaspora are long overdue. Predictably, the question of reparations becomes a debate only when it comes to Africa and Africans. When the British ended slavery, all the owners of enslaved Africans received reparations to the tune of some 20 million pounds sterling, the equivalent today of some 20 billion pounds sterling. But enslaved Africans themselves did not receive a penny. So it takes time for Africa, 20 million of whose sons and daughters had their freedoms curtailed and sold into slavery, also to receive reparations. No amount of money can restore the damage caused by the transatlantic slave trade and its consequences, which will span many centuries. But surely, this is a matter that the world must confront and can no longer ignore.
The president called on European states that undertook the slave trade to render a formal apology to the entire continent. The objectives of the Accra Reparations Conference, ARC, are to facilitate discussions and knowledge sharing among experts, policymakers, academics, and stakeholders on the topic of reparations. It is also to examine the legal and moral grounds for reparations, explore different modules of reparatory justice, and explore mechanisms for truth-telling,